I'm a professional improviser, and what that means is I create scenes on the spot without the benefit of a script and without the burden of a script. So normally what happens is we create these scenes in the moment based on audience suggestions, and they usually happen in theaters, and the intention usually is to be comedic. But what I have found in my work with improvisation is that it can be used in so many different ways. I've been able to use it as a training module for social workers to help them diagnose and listen more deeply. I've used it with police officers as a way for them to de-escalate potentially violent situations. And I've used it for people who are struggling with anxiety as a way to manage their feelings. But regardless of where I do my improvised work, they always begin with something called a declaration. I thought that I would begin with 3 declarations. Now, a declaration is very important. It gives the scene energy, and it also gives your scene partner a gift that he or she can work with. So here's my first declaration. I'm Jim Robinson. Now, I'm a performer, so I appreciate applause. You didn't have to do that. Thank you. Now, I'm Jim Robinson is not a terribly strong declaration. It doesn't really give much. So let me add a little bit to that. I am a Fulbright alumnus who did 2 Fulbright Specialist projects in Pakistan, mostly in Islamabad in 2018, working with theaters, working with therapy training centers, and working with schools. My second declaration, which I do believe is stronger, is I love Pakistan. And you can see by the picture over on the right that I was met with curiosity, I was met with hospitality, I was met with concern, I was met with art, I was met with passion, I was met with everything that made my stay absolutely fantastic. My third declaration, improvisation will bring world peace. Thank you. Now, this in many ways is the most compelling declaration because it gives a lot of information to think about. And so what I did is I came up with this declaration, and I thought I'm going to do what a good improviser does. I'm going to reach out to fellow improvisers and ask them to respond in the moment to this declaration, improvisation will bring world peace. I sent this out to Pakistani and American improvisers, and I said, please, 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 write your first response. Here are some of the responses. Oh, interesting. I can see why some might think that's ridiculous. But cooperation can only happen with true transparency. Great. If only everyone could learn and apply the skills of improvisation to all the major and minor concerns of the world, what a different world it could be. Very hopeful. The core element of improvisation is saying yes to something, and it isn't until we open up and accept and acknowledge that there is always a possibility to make something better, that this world can be a more peaceful one. Very hopeful. The next 2 gave me pause. Shocking. What about voting? Won't that help? Okay. And then the final declaration to improvisation will bring world peace is this. No. So this one actually gave me the most energy because I thought, well, wait a minute. I'm going to actually demonstrate how my experience here in Pakistan doing improvisation actually fueled my belief that improvisation will bring world peace. So what I did is that I was going to talk about the 3 rules of improvisation and show how they came to life here in Pakistan during my Fulbright Specialist. The first rule of improvisation is we always say yes and. And what that means is we accept whatever happens in the moment. We say yes to it. We honor and we explore it. When I got to Theater Wale, a wonderful independent theater here in Islamabad, I was met with actors and singers and writers, producers, people who were extraordinarily talented. And what I did is I began to teach them the rules of improvisation, and they said yes and in ways that I was completely amazed by. For example, their declarations were heartfelt. I had a lot of, I love you, not to me, but in a scene. I had a lot of, I hate you. And then I had, is that haram? Or biryani again? My favorite declaration, my favorite example of yes and happened in a scene that I did in one of the shows that we produced there. I was working with one of the improvisers, and we got a suggestion from the audience, and the suggestion was a workplace relationship. So we stepped out on stage, I looked at her, she looked at me, and she said, "You are encroaching upon my space." Great declaration, lots of energy in that. And I did what every bad improviser did. I said, "No, I'm not." Well, by doing that, I had stopped the scene and I had began an argument that couldn't really go anywhere. Nobody wants to watch that. So I decided I will add the and portion of that, and I'll say, you're encroaching on my space too. And she was beautiful. She said, yes, I am, and I intend to take over this entire company. And suddenly our scene, it had energy, it had dynamics, it had a relationship, and it gave me something because I looked back at her and I said, I'm so happy about that. I'm in love with you and I want to be your subject. So I thought that was funny. So what happened is we started off with an argument, but by saying yes to the moment, by opening ourselves up to the possibilities of what could happen in that moment, we were able to go in directions that we never would have gone had we stayed in our positions and said no. So how does this apply to world peace? The thing about saying yes to the moment is not that you agree necessarily with every single thing that the person is saying, but you agree to listen deeply. That you're willing to listen deeply and then respond in a way that indicates that you respect the other person enough to take them seriously and then work with them on that. I'm going to show this picture as well. After our first show, we had a tremendous yes and moment when the cast, for reasons that I will never understand, broke into a rendition of Climb Every Mountain, and then they descended upon me. I don't understand Pakistan in some ways. The next rule of improvisation is radical non-judgment. We try not to judge ourselves and we try not to judge our scene partner. Instead, what we do is we approach every interaction with curiosity. This happened in one of the shows that we did when I did what's called a directed story. And a directed story works where we get a suggestion from the audience and then I, in this case, as the director, gesture toward each storyteller, and that storyteller tells a portion of the story, and of course it's all improvised. So we were about to go up on stage, and one of the improvisers looked at me and said, can we do this in Urdu? And I said, yes, I'm an improviser, and besides I know 5 words in Urdu, ik, do, teen, char, panj. You know, how hard can this be? So we began a scene that involved a mango. And this mango, over the course of the scene, went from being a very shy, introverted mango to being a very amorous mango who traveled the world with a banana. You know, it's a tale as old as time. What's interesting, though, is by taking a non-judgmental approach and a curious approach, I didn't really worry about how terrible I was as a director, because I don't really speak Urdu. I kept interrupting them in the middle of words. Or when the climax of the story happened, I stopped it short because I wasn't sure if the mango was crazy or in love or if it's the same thing. However, my scene mates, my improvisers, they also let go of judgment and they went with it and they became very adaptable. Suddenly the sentences that they were using became incredibly rapid because they wanted to get their point of view out before I stopped it in my English-only mind. They also were really willing to go wherever the story went by listening to the person before them. They let go of their prejudices, they let go of their agendas, they let go of their plans, and they listened to the person in front of them and they honored that. How does this apply to world peace? Well, when we enter a situation with curiosity, we're forced to really let go, at least for the moment, of our ideologies, of our nationalities, of our gender, and we have to be with other people in a way that is respectful. The third rule of improv is make your scene partner look good. And the way that we do this is we see whatever happens on stage as a gift, whatever happens. And this was so easy for me in Pakistan. The way that I was treated by USEFP, by Fulbright Pakistan, by the schools and the theaters and the therapy training sessions I worked with, I was greeted with nothing but affection and love and hospitality. So this was very easy for me. However, there was one day when I was teaching my 6-hour-long improvisation and mental health workshop when one of the members of the group decided to make a very, very strong declaration. 4.5 hours into it, he walked into the middle of the room, he sat down, and he plopped himself in the middle of the circle. And I thought, oh, that's a good declaration. He's done. And instantly I started to worry, what have I done? Is it transgressed in some cultural way? Is this 2 alpha males going to have some sort of fight? Or did I not give him enough sugar in his tea? And we'd already gone 3 hours without a tea break, which seems impossible in Pakistan. I simply didn't know. But what I decided to do as an improviser, with the help of the other people in the workshop, is to make this man look good. I mean, he was majestic anyway, quite an impressive figure. He sat in the middle of the circle, and then we improvised around him, not ignoring him, but including him. And so he, who was tired, didn't want to improvise anymore, instead of shaming him and alienating him, we said yes to him, and we created a scene that made him look good and made us look good. It was amazing. Now, the thing about making your scene partner look good is that you do what you can to honor that person. This does not mean that you appease them. It does not mean that you ever do anything that diminishes another person. It does not mean that you agree to something that you yourself don't necessarily believe. But what it does mean is that you find a way to include the person in the dialogue. Now, the dialogue, if you're saying yes, is going to be very generative. It's going to have energy. It's going to go in places that you can't determine. In terms of world peace, to go back to my original declaration, what a great way to approach things. I'm going to try to make you look as good as you can. You're going to try to make me look as good as you can, and we're going to somehow work this out. In improvisation, we always say, work it out. Find a strategy. Having said that, I am going to improvise for you right now, which should strike fear in the hearts of everybody. I was given, without my having seen them, a bunch of index cards where lines of dialogue were written out by the other speakers over here. If this fails, it's their fault. Thank you very much. And I decided I was going to address 3 important questions using my improvised lines of dialogue and see if I can make this work. World peace. What's my first step? Now, I've never seen this before, but here we go. Have the kids you want to have as soon as you can, because really it's hard to translate this. That is so true. If you're going to have world peace, the first step is to have the kids when you want them, and then train them in improvisation. Let them know what to do. Make them say yes, and then you say yes to them, except when it gets in the way and it causes them danger. Oh, a lot of these are in Urdu, which don't include the 5 words I know. Another way to talk about this, what's my first step? Darling, one of the hardest things you've ever done in your life is loving yourself. This person doesn't even know me, and they somehow saw into my soul. It's amazing. In world peace, of course, we do what improvisers do. We don't judge ourselves and we don't judge our scene partners. Let's take a look at the next one. Can anyone improvise? Tell people that you're from India, not Pakistan. I'm from India, not Pakistan. See, I improvised right there. That was great. How about this one? You really shouldn't have parked in that spot. That is so true. And yet, as an improviser, we don't recognize lines. We park on lawns, we park on highways. A lot of times we don't even take the car. And finally, before leaving for Fulbright, my teacher advised me to not study and have fun. Yes. Now, the third one, what's the biggest benefit of world travel? No matter where you travel to, always have a roll of toilet paper in your bag. That is a real benefit. And I have learned this as I've traveled the world. The other thing about improvisation is that it's not that you leave your preparation behind, you don't leave your mind behind, you bring it with you, but you also put it in its proper perspective. Our mind tells us so many stories. Oftentimes, they keep us blind to the moment in front of us. So be prepared, bring your toilet paper, but also be prepared to say yes. And finally, rub oil in your navel and you shall never have depression. I did that this morning, and look at me, I look so happy. Finally, you create world peace one person at a time. And my experience here in Pakistan demonstrated that to me over and over and over again. I had such a wonderful time, and I was greeted with so much care. Likewise, if you're going to make a declaration, make a bold declaration. Improvisation will lead to world peace, but then it's your responsibility to see that that happens. The declarations that you make, that I make, that we all make in our lives give us energy, and they propel us in directions that really can be amazing if we stay open. And finally, with improvisation, listen and respond. You have to honor the moment, and the only way to honor it is to listen to it and then respond. And once you've done that, listen and respond again. Thank you so much.